Good morning, children. Sometimes Mr. Harris forgets to go live, so he forgets to press play. So when he's been talking to you all for 2 or 3 minutes, when he realises none of you can see me, none of you can hear me. So I'm going to start the lesson again and pretend none of that happened, because as far as you know, it didn't. I know, however, I've been sat in this little office talking away to myself for the last 2 or 3 minutes. None of you are allowed to laugh. It's not funny. Okay, today we're going to be learning about continuous and discrete data. We're going to be learning about the two different types of data, and we're going to be talking about 2 Q words as well. We're going to hopefully do it in an interesting and fun way. I am going to get myself organised and actually teach the lesson. I might stop again and start the whole lesson again. But I reckon that's enough introductions. So, I've got instructions from my wife this morning. I have to look at the camera because apparently I keep looking at the screen all the time, and when I look at the screen it looks like I'm reading from a script like this. And you can't see my eyes, but I need to look at the camera because that's where you are. You're in there. So I'm going to try and talk to you a bit more today. We're going to head over to the studio. I've got a starting activity for us all to do. So, I love that I call it a studio. It's not a studio, but it is a studio to me. So we're over here, and we are just going through again what we're going to be learning. We're talking about types of data today. There are various different types of data. We're mainly interested in number data, but we're going to talk especially about different things. But before we begin, we have a starting activity. This activity is called the unknown question activity. You don't know what the question was. You only know that the answer is 3 biscuits and a fox. What you have to come up with in the chat, or written down in front of you, or speaking to your mum's, dad's, carers, whoever looks after you, whoever's in the room, what could the question have been so that the answer was 3 biscuits and a fox? I'd love to hear what you come up with. While you're doing that, good morning to everyone. Good morning, Remus. Good morning, Thiel. Good morning, Alicia. Good morning. I am not late, Alexandra. I am unfortunately on time, just without going live, which is kind of like being late, isn't it? I agree. So, good morning to Grace. Good morning, Sharanya. Good morning, Sophie and Josh. Good morning, Sparsh. Good morning, Annie. Good morning, Kira. Good morning, Amelie. I will try and learn people's names just from the usernames, but it's difficult. Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, Caden. Good morning, Grace. Good morning, Remus. Good morning from Maya. Good morning, Maya. Hopefully, you can all see. If a fox likes biscuits, then how many biscuits will it eat? A fox will eat a fox. That's probably all of them. What can you fit inside a car boot, maybe? 3 biscuits and a fox. What other ideas do people have? Feel free, if you're watching this and it's not live, feel free to add these in to the bottom of your into the comments below the video. If you're doing this later, I'd love to see what people come up with. What did the lion eat? A fox and 3 biscuits. Good morning, Harriet. So let's move on. We're talking about discrete and continuous data. You might be thinking, well, what's that picture got to do with it? Discrete. That's the island of Crete. I am not going to apologise for the bad jokes. You know what you're getting with me. So, we are going to be talking about discrete and continuous. But before we do, we need to identify the 2 types of data. Quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative involves numbers. If the data has numbers in it, it's probably quantitative. Qualitative is the things you see, smell, hear. They're all descriptions of things. We're not going to be doing too much with qualitative data today. We're going to be mainly doing quantitative things. So we're going to go into that and what can we count and what can we measure. So, discrete data is data basically, once we're inside quantitative data, discrete data is factual. It is a thing. It is a whole thing. It is a sort of thing you might count. When we're dealing with number data, discrete means you can count them. So, for example, the number of pens I have on my desk is way too many. It's currently 4. I have been able to count them. I haven't got 4.72 pens. Continuous data is different. It's where you measure the data and you work out, you can get more and more accurate. For example, every day I measure my weight. It's going down slowly, and I'm lower than where I used to be, but that is a continuous measurement because it will continue to move up and down and change. But when I measure it, I've put this morning that 108.2 kilograms, but that could go down. That could be 108.224 If I had more accurate scales, you can get more accurate, and that's the difference with continuous data. You can get more accurate, whereas discrete data you can't get more accurate. So here's a good way of remembering it. When you've got discrete things, there might be a gap between data. There's no gap in continuous data. It will continue. That's why it's called continuous. There's no gap between the two. So when we're trying to work out which is which, we've got to think of this gap, and that's going to be useful for what we're going to use it for. Oh, the owl's coming back. Right, let's go over to the whiteboard where I can help explain this a little bit further. Discrete data is where we're adding things up. So, I might, for example, be counting the number of birds I've seen through the window this morning, because all I have is my room and my window. So the number of birds, we did some tallying last week, and it involves that. But let's say we've already done our tallying, and we work it out. We saw a blackbird, or we saw an eagle. I've got a very exciting window if I'm seeing eagles. We've got 3 eagles. I saw some chaffinches. Got to make my writing as neat as I can. 5 chaffinches, and we also saw some penguins. Just outside my, they are just outside my window. Couple of penguins. This is all discrete data. You can't have 1.4 blackbirds. This is counted data. We have counted how many there are. So when we go to draw a bar chart for this data, it is very important on our birds section because these are all discrete things. They are not numbers and they're not measurements. These are discrete things. This is qualitative data. This is a description of the bird. When I do my bar chart here, they have to all, so I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I draw them, my blackbird is going to go up there. And I'm going to write blackbird underneath. And this is how we know it's discrete data. The eagle has to have a gap before its bar. You are not allowed to put the bars next to each other. I mentioned this briefly when we were talking about frequency, but now I'm explaining why. It's because this is discrete data. You can't have blackbird and a half, which is a half blackbird, half eagle. It would be quite a dangerous bird, but quite common. We then need a gap to chaffinches. Yeah, you're going to need this later when you're going to do your own bar charts. You're going to do 2 of them. And finally, my 2 penguins. Remember, there's got to be a gap because this is discrete data. And there's my penguins. Now, you can then shade this in. The best bar charts that you're all going to send me will have some pretty things. And then, as I told you, I like to do hash shading like this to make it look pretty. But you can do whatever kind of shading or colouring you want for your bar charts later. This is discrete data because it has gaps in between the bars and the numbers can't be measured. You can't have blackbird and a half. The difference is if I was to do something like this. Now, in order to do so, I'm going to have to... I've got the heights of the penguins I see. Having this many penguins in my garden, it's up to about 12 now, having this many penguins in the garden, I get to measure them. Now I have some very small penguins that start at 0, and they go all the way from 0 up to 10 centimetres. They're quite small penguins. Then we have some from 10 to 20 centimetres, from 20 to 30 centimetres, some from 30 to 40 centimetres, and some from 40 to 50. And if I count them, I've got 2 like that, 3 like that, 1 like that, 4 like that, and 2 that size. But if I do this, 0 to 10, we have a problem. What happens if a penguin comes along? This is going to look awful. I'm not the best penguin drawer. I don't know if you can notice that. That's my best penguin ever. You'd have thought with all these penguins in the garden I'd be able to know what they look like. It just looks like a cat wearing a dinner jacket. But when I'm counting my penguins, if this was exactly 10 centimetres, would it go in the top group or the next group down, because 10 is in both? So to deal with that, we use a special system. Now don't worry, if you're year 3, this is not supposed to be scary. You do not have to copy this yourself. Just understand, when you see this is going to be a little h. All this means, and you'll learn it later on as you get older, why it means this, but all this means is, this middle bit means 0 to 10, but 10 is included. 10 to 20, but 20 is included, but 10 isn't. This line here means that 10 is not included. So 10, this bird would be in this data here. This penguin. Doesn't smile very much. It's a smiley penguin. Okay. Now, as we can see, I've now got to draw a chart. So to do so, I'm going to have to get rid of Mr. Penguin. Goodbye, Mr. Penguin. I hope you've enjoyed your experience of being in our lesson. When you have to draw the bar chart here, because these numbers are next to each other, this is continuous data. Whenever you see this funny measurements things, you don't need to understand fully how it works, just that this means 0 to 10, 10 to 20. There's no missing numbers. We could put 7.666431 would fit in this gap. Because it's continuous, the difference is, when we draw our bar chart, instead of labels along the bottom, we have a number line. 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And this time, there's no gap. Remember I said the key is discrete data has gaps, continuous has no gaps. So when we go 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 2 between 0 and 10. The next one is there are 3 between 10 and 20. Notice there's no gap here. And the numbers are on the edges of the bar, not in the middle. So instead of writing down these things down the bottom, we actually do a number line and show 0, 10, 20, 30, 40. So the next one goes down here. The next one goes all the way up here. And the final one goes along here. So we've got here continuous data. I can still shade it in and make it look pretty because I like to. But there's no gaps because this is continuous data. While people make notes of that, I'm just going to see if there are any questions. Yes, 3 eagles and 2 penguins, Remus. I can't help it. Okay. It's Iona, sorry, Iona. I can't help it. If that's the birds that are in the garden, I'm just having a look out in the garden and that's what's there. Okay. What have I missed? Hopefully you're all thinking, sir, you didn't write the labels on the axis. And this is the heights of the penguins, and we normally write what the units are, so it was centimetres. These are quite small penguins. 50 centimetres is only half a metre, so they're not the biggest penguin in the world. 10 centimetres is a very small penguin. But it's not my fault, that's what size the penguins are in my garden. That is the key difference between continuous data, it's a long word, and discrete data. Remember, when you're trying to spell continuous, it's got U-O-U. It's not many words that have U-O-U, okay? But this is one. So that's also useful to learn. Let's go back to the studio. I love calling it the studio. So, just a reminder, if it's got a gap, if it's discrete. If it's got a gap, it can't be continuous. Continuous data does not have a gap. There's my owl. This time he's got a towel. He appears in nearly every lesson. We need to tell him to stop turning up. So, what have we learned today? We have learnt qualitative data, coming from the word quality, is data which describes something. We had them with the types of birds. We described the types of birds, so it was qualitative data. Quantitative data involves counting things and numbers. So it might involve how many of something. We make bar charts by using quantitative data, but of qualitative facts. But we can also make continuous bar charts, as I've shown you today. So hopefully that gives you enough to do your challenge today, which is to complete the discrete and continuous data sheet. Excuse me. How unprofessional. Sneezing during my filming. Ridiculous. That's downloadable from the description below. If you go below the video, you can find in the description the things, the facts, the sheets. So, if you have any questions, please use the comments below the videos. Not many people use it, and I'd love to see your comments, your feedback. I know loads of people are tuning in to see my videos. I'm loving how many people are doing the work. I'd love to see more of that work. You can email me or go on the Facebook group, School of Mr. Harris, and you can see that. I'll show you in a second. If I go here, you can see, I think it's there. It might be there. There, maybe, is where I've got my email address. It's got my different information, so you can contact me. Show photos of your work. I'd love to be able to post every Monday. Not next Monday, we're going to have a Monday off. I'll put the timetable out. Next Tuesday will be the next one because we've got a bank holiday Monday. But show me the work you've been doing on this. I'd love to see more. Love to see your continuous and your discrete bar charts. Thank you all those wonderful people who have been doing that. Advika always shows me her work. Willow often shows me different things, and I see lots of work from lots of you. I'd love to see more. The more I get to see, the happier it makes me, and it gets me surviving this horrible time stuck in my room. So, thank you very much for joining me. I've been Mr. Harris. Ciao.